You guys, I'm so happy you're here. Guys, as you know, I have been quite obsessed with the woman that is Alyx Allen. I don't know if it's healthy or not, though, so we'll
Borderline.
See. Borderline. But we're so excited to have her. For those of you that attended the retreat or have heard of the retreat, probably saw a lot of the content online or listened in on her amazing keynote and her breakout session that we'll get into that in a minute. But before we get started, I want to ask you, Alyx, when is the last time that somebody had you fucked up?
As in, like, offended me?
Yeah, like, who the... One of those moments, you know?
They actually happened a lot back in the day, but they don't really happen as much anymore, I think, because I don't invite it. Like, because if someone has me, like, effed up to the 10th degree, like, I truly take note really fast.
Yeah.
And leave the chat, figuratively. So, people genuinely have me effed up when they make me the villain of their story.
Ooh.
Truly. And that's been a historical thing for me. And as I've gotten confident in, like, being louder, or I call it the sparkle effect, or I hold myself to a very high standard, and I know it intimidates people. Whenever they make me the villain, I'm like, it's a total you thing. So I think I don't go as up anymore because I've released that grip.
That's so good. It's funny that you say that.
But I'm just saying.
No, I love it. I love that you said that, because right before, like, you had got on and stuff, Jamia and I were talking about somebody that we've engaged in life, that it's kind of been this, like, cyclical thing of, like, oh my God, I love you, I love you, I love you. Then, like, oh my God, I hate you. Now you're blocked on Instagram. I've unfollowed you. I'm like, I don't know. And it comes back to this thing of, like, oh, sweetie, like, that's a you problem.
Yeah.
Like, this, like, cyclical thing has nothing to do with me. This is a straight you problem.
And I always tried to come, okay, well, hi, everybody. I'm Alyx. I'm a clinical therapist and a life coach.
We'll do your intro. Don't worry.
I have historically, it's quite sad, actually, and I've had to process this on my own and on figuring out what part of me has caused this. But I've had a lot of friendship divorces, a lot. And what I realized in that is I was recreating a narrative that I had with my mom. Like, I've had to figure that out. And I was overly providing energy to other females. So when I took it away, I abandoned them. And I had to take accountability for the energy that I brought there. And, most recently I had a friend divorce, and I would have never put money on that friendship ending or pausing or just transitioning. But I think when people have me effed up, when I provide a lot of grace for people to live how they want, because I'm busy. Like, if I have to over-explain myself to you, I'm good. Like,
I feel so seen. Oh my God.
No, literally, like, you have multiple things you're functioning. And and my friends now know this, because Rachel, you guys know Rachel, she says, you're fake rude. Because my soul isn't rude, but if you interrupt me, you're getting pushed out. And with all the love, but I respect me so much, and you, that you do you, and I'm going to do me. And if we have enough grace and empathy to come back, then we'll get there. And if not, it's fine.
Yeah. I imagine that it took a lot to get to that point too, because I feel like innately, or at least for myself, I'll speak for myself, I am very much innately a people pleaser, in the term of I don't like when other people feel bad. This is something I have been working through with therapy for many of therapy sessions, and we're still working through it, that I would rather take on the pain or uncomfortability of a situation, as opposed to stand up for myself or whatever the case and have the other person feel what they should be feeling in that sense. But I've mentioned a few times, like, 2023 is very much 100% jammy energy, and I'm very much giving, it's about me now. I am my own main character. And so I think it's taking up to the point where I have allowed other people to consume so much of that energy, or I've taken on so much of it that I don't have any left for myself. And perhaps that's why I wasn't able to stand up for myself before, is because I was like, I don't want them to feel bad about being an a-hole. I don't want them to feel bad about the stuff that they've been through. Granted, they've, gone through this. Their mom didn't treat them right. Their dad left, this, and that. So there's an excuse as to why they act this way. But I think I'm finally getting into a place of yes, and like, yes, that's true. And you're not going to talk to me like you don't know who I am. As opposed to a yes, but like, yes, that's true, but I understand and I'll give you grace in that sense. So I think that it's cool to kind of see you be in that realm now of being like, this is what it is. And there's no comma. This is a period, very much so. Yeah.
I always tell people with love, like, I will give you grace, but I will not give you an excuse.
Wow. Yeah.
So with love.
Yes. We love grace with love. We love that.
The villain in everyone's story has always just been, I've honestly kind of embraced it at this point.
Love
right?
That.
I mean, and there's like I can go on a whole thing about this, but
we're here.
Fear with people pleasing, we've adopted that. I mean, it is a mother wound to its core. It is a role that has been taught, and it is an expectation that is just exactly that. And when you unlearn that, shame becomes the preface of it all. I mean, even in my friendships that have ended, I felt so much shame about them not liking me. Like, this must be a me thing. And it was, because no shade to them, but my journey didn't really involve them. And like, I don't ever want to make someone feel less than, because that's never my intention. But if you're not riding to the depths with me without me having to explain, because I have a temper on top of it all. I have my father's temper. If I have to explain myself to you, I don't have the patience for it. And I know that about me, and I might not be right, but it's where I'm at. And another huge part of that is, I have a huge saying, even in Becoming Her, I think it's like week 6, I bring it up. If you don't like another female to your core, if someone's got me effed up and they've jolted me, it is weird, because it's a trigger. It's a trigger. It is, you have knocked me off of something that I haven't processed within myself. And I always talk about having so much power in knowing you, that if even someone's talking mad shit to you, you're like, you're absolutely right. I can be wrong because you're absolutely right. And I'm not triggered. I'm willing to hear it.
Would love to get to that place.
You will.
Like, on that journey. On that journey.
You will. I think you will. And I tell clients this. You will, when your kids become a teenager, because you see it get done to them, and you're like, oh, let that girl say one more thing, and then you have to reel it back, because it's not your journey.
Is it?
You have to reel it back. It's not your journey. And
I'll fight a child over my child.
Well, you want your kid to have that same feist. And the best thing my mom did, I'll tell you, was like, how are you going to handle that? And I'm like, I'm 16. She's like, better figure it out. And I think the more people focus on their marriage and the unity there, people can't penetrate it. So when people get you effed up, you're like, you are not paying my bills, and you're not paying dinner. Like, I don't have time. So please block me. That's fine. Maybe we can talk about it later.
Or not.
I was like, or not. Like, that part right there, especially when you've gone through this. So I love what you said about, I'll give you grace, but I'm not going to give you an excuse. Like, I'm not giving you a reason to be any type of way to me. My question, I guess, for you now, kind of running with that, is you also mentioned intention. I find myself even really, really troubled when somebody does, I guess maybe this is, I don't know, there's probably a deeper root here. I don't know.
Always, everything's a
But when I get offended when I'm like, well, why would you even think that of me? Like, for you to say you know me and know what my intention should speak for itself. And I think that I have a hard time getting past that. Because that's when I feel like people have me effed up. And I'm like, that's not who I am. Like, so why would you even, like, what?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that is a way that I'm either protecting myself, perhaps, or I don't know, or if that's a wall. I don't know. It's interesting to me, because now that you say that, it has me kind of thinking of, like, I don't know. I feel a mess right there. That got really messy for me just now.
That's okay. It's supposed to be. It's muddy. It probably, in my opinion, probably would stem from you've worked really hard to provide and be endearing and to check your character. Like you've almost made it like your mission. Like even with
that's on period.
So when people challenge it or don't see it, you feel unseen or invalidated.
Okay.
Receive it, Alyx.
It's you're right. I'm like, I busted my ass to become who I am. I try to be self-aware. I try to be very intentional in the way that I communicate, the way that I love. I try to love with this, like, I don't even know the word I could use right now to explain the way that I really try to genuinely love people and meet them where they're at. So I don't know. I appreciate that. But now that you've said all of this, sorry, Jam, go for it.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that made me think of something. I don't know if it was Alyx, it might have been you who said this, or I might have seen it somewhere on social media, but like it's important to remember that you are not the main character in other people's story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that reminding myself of that helps me understand exactly what we were saying before. It's never a me problem when it comes to other people's opinions about me. It's a them problem. And yeah, I have stuff to work on and things but like how you said, you've worked really hard to be super intentional on how you love others and how you show up and how you present yourself. So as long as you're checking out and still holding yourself accountable, then everything after that would be a them issue. That's a main character in their story dealing with whatever plot twists and whatever comes. But that just kind of made me think of that too.
That's good stuff.
Thing I talk and teach about. I don't know if it was in my master's program or my supervisor Cheryl. There's something called perspective self, where we see ourselves as the highest version, right? Like I want to look like a Parisian New Yorker who drinks cappuccinos. Like but like sassy Joanna who also cooks every night, right? Like I have a version of me that I see. I think when people challenge that, there can be multiple characters that challenge that. We feel dimmed, and that could be what's happening.
For sure.
She just like drops all these bombs. Oh,
yeah.
Anyhow,
live in this.
Light it up, Alyx.
Live in this head. So yes, like we've talked a little bit, and everyone will obviously, when we do this episode, and everyone's going to hear your bio and everything, right? About who is Alyx. But outside of the things that we can find in your bio and the things that people can search up about you on the internet, who would you say Alyx is? Like, tell us about you. Who are you? I know we have this desire to be a nice little Southerner, but give me all the rest.
I'm a bad beat. That's what it is. Love that.
I love that for us.
Yeah, she's layered. Yeah. Well, she's obviously a wife and she's obviously a mom, and those things are very important to me personally because they signify my grounding. Like my friends will say, you're one of the most grounded persons I've ever met because I work really hard on it. I'm slightly chaotic in the best way. Like you should see this desk. Like I'm pretty positive I have ADD the way my mind works. But more importantly, I'm just kind of like a sass ball, truly. Like I mean love, but I don't have patience to filter. I do whatever I want. I have an authoritarian issue or authoritative issue. I'm severely traumatized by my parents,
for sure,
but respect the fact that they're trying as an adult because there's a shift.
Yeah.
I'm a generational interrupter or curse interrupter, like a mofo. And if I don't carry that weight daily, it's hourly, truly.
Same.
It's a thing. I always say my roller coaster is depression. You'll notice when I'm on it because I'll get very silent. And that's okay. I actually wear it pretty well. Like I don't hide from it. And I'm just fucking really real. I pride myself on that. Like it's not in the bio, but I think it's pretty transparent. Like I'm just a bulldozer in the most caring way.
I love that. Maybe that's why we're like kindred spirits, because I feel that 100%. I feel like I haven't reached the point of where I can be like, oh, that's totally a you issue and you should figure that shit out. That has nothing to do with me. Like I'm almost there, but maybe after a few more therapy sessions, I'll get there.
Yeah.
But not quite.
You know what's interesting though? As much as I'm a bulldozer, you know what I've learned about myself in the past 2 years? I actually have stopped saying it. Like if someone has a you issue, I'm like, I just don't say anything. And to the point where my family's like, what is this face? I'm like, oh, that's not you. I think because I know it so deeply about like 32-year-old Alyx, I have stopped verbalizing what I know to be. And I am in a state of immense being.
Oh, so beautiful. I love that for you.
Yeah.
I love that for women. I really do. Question, are you religious at all?
So religious. It's like my hidden secret.
Yeah?
I like always joke, like when my clients tell me like they're Christian, I like because I always say like God and I are so tight. Like I got rebaptized. I was raised Catholic and that didn't stick. But I got rebaptized at 24 as a secret. I didn't even tell my husband. I just went. It was my own journey, and I went and got dumped into a pool in the middle of Brea, California, and I have my God language that I am so grateful for because it is, and I'm not in every Sunday churcher. Like we have our home church here in Vegas, thank God, but it's a nightly practice. And sometimes when I coach people, I just want to be like, do you want to like sometimes I just want to say it. Like, oh, you're with the Lord. But like I know that's not everyone's vibe. So I'm very careful. Like I've studied religions through my rebirth as a Christian because I like to study Jehovah's Witness. I studied Judaism. I've studied Buddhist. Like I've studied so many things because okay, here we go. I don't actually hold Bible as truth. I just don't. I think there's wisdom. I think men insert themselves as needed. But the God language is so tight that I wish I could give it to everybody. Like, well, I don't know. I just won't. Like and the therapist can't ever say it. Someone always like, do you like that?
You should pray about that. Yeah, for sure.
Just be very quiet about it.
No, I didn't know that about you. Honestly, I didn't know it about you. And I know we've had conversations just about like, I always felt like this like magnetic kind of like pull towards you. And I don't know. But it's so interesting, and I love how you use the language like about this rebirth because I know that's exactly what happened to me. I grew up Christian, but non-denominational, had some Baptist tendencies. That's that whole little Southern piece of it. But in the last, like I would say, like since like 2017, maybe.
Yeah.
What year is this? 23. It's like 6 years ago is when it really started. Of just like, hold up, I don't know if I believe that. And I went through this whole deconstruction phase of really trying to figure out, like, what do I believe? Like, is God real? And today, I know he is so real. And I am so grateful for the love that I have and the understanding that he has given me. It is just, like, when you're talking about it, it, like, made my eyes water because I understand exactly where you're at of that, like, ooh, like, I know. Like, I just know beyond a know where I'm at with him. And I now want to transition this because I know some backstory. So, Jimmy, I'm not trying to like put you on blast of like, like Aaron, you can edit this part out.
Blast
but I feel like, Jimmy, you're in that space where you know God is real, like that you're not questioning that. But you're in this space. Can you share with us a little bit kind of what space you're in as it relates to like your faith walk when it comes from like even like this mental health piece and then this whole analyzing like what is Christianity for you?
Thank you so much for asking. I would love to tell you. I feel as though I am kind of like in the middle of this. I honestly feel as though I'm in a really weird spot when it comes with it. For a little bit of background on that, I did grow up in the church, Christian. We were Kojic most of my life, Church of God in Christ. And my parents, when my parents got divorced, like my dad was very much, we are in church every single day of the week. Doesn't matter if you have to get up at 4:00 in the morning the next day to go to work or go to school. My mom was like, I want to be the fun parent. We'll only go on the weekends. But it was very much still a consistent thing for me. So growing up, it wasn't something that I had to learn. It was something I already knew. So it was just very much a like a part of my identity or part of my being was that I go to church, I know God, we have relationship, and that's just what it is. As I'm starting to get a bit older, I feel like almost everyone around me has had an opportunity to go through a reconstruction phase or deconstructing phase. Like everybody's had an opportunity to leave where they were comfortable and do the research on other religions or experience what it's like to not have the crutch of church or not have the crutch of what you grew up to know. And I feel as though I'm in a tough spot with that, not only because like my husband and I are very much deep believers in God. We are very much still Christians. We go to church every Sunday. We are in a weird spot when it comes to that. And that's a whole nother story. But the foundation of what we believe is still here. And it's just a little tough because what we experience in what is supposed to be our safe place is very much different from what we have grown to know based on what like we're taught. So like, you know, and I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but like when it comes to like your leadership and feeling safe with your leadership when it comes to the church, I feel like that's such a delicate relationship and it's so dangerous to walk on a thin line with that. And that's where we're at. We're very much tipping on both sides. So where I'm at right now when it comes to God, I absolutely still believe in God. I absolutely still love him and want to serve him and all of that stuff. But I think the way that I do that looks a lot different than how it did before, but it's not all the way on the other side of like, it's not like all the way on like I don't believe the Bible and I don't go to church, but it's also not on the other side of like you have to go to church every Sunday and that's the only reason to have relationship or only way to have relationship. So I'm in a very yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that story.
Thanks. It's it's one that's still evolving because I would love to have the opportunity to experience it with just myself, like no crutch. I feel like church for me is very much a crutch. It's something that I feel like a lot of times I have to do. And yeah, so that's why like it's a weird situation, which is why I'm trying to censor myself a little bit because
it's sensitive, it's vulnerable.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very much so. And I like my brother, for example, he moved out of state and we all grew up together going to church and whatnot. And that was his first opportunity to separate himself from the obligation of God as opposed to like the experience with him.
That's such a good way to say that.
And he was able to circle back. So he experienced everything else and then realized, no, that was right. Like, no, God is real. Like, and I feel like I really want to be able to have that opportunity, but I don't know. It's a weird place to be for sure.
You'll get it. I mean, it's one of the reasons we didn't baptize our girls. I said, they'll figure it out. Like everyone almost has to go on a journey. And I think that's like the best part. Like, cause Jamia, how old are you?
I'm 27, right? 27.
Yeah, you're like at that time. Like you just,
yeah.
A journey is a journey. And that's why I'm very reluctant when A, it's therapist training, but B, it's why I'm very reluctant on telling people about that. I mean, even down with my kids, they'll be like, well, Mom, and I'm like, listen, this is mine. This is mine. I will help you with what I know, but I am not all being for what you'll experience. I mean, we listen to Christian music daily in the car. Like, it's a thing. No one would
a thing.
I run to Gyra. Like, people literally, I run to Gyra. We're like, we'll do a 3K on Gyra repeat. Right?
It's long enough for that. You might as well.
Like, I went to Stevens with Rachel. I went to Stephen Bertrick's concert, like, in October. Like, it's a total, I don't want to say secret identity, but it's like my little...
Yeah.
It's almost your like thing for you. Space too, though. It's like this like little like, no, this is mine. Like this relationship, like this experience is so mine.
But, you know, I do tell people who speak the language, you know, what I do is not what I want to do. Like, therapist wasn't even on the radar. Yeah. Coaching wasn't even on the radar. Do you know, every single client or opportunity I have, I prayed for it. I say, whoever needs to come, bring them. And I'm not even trying to be funny. I get a discovery call that night.
Wow.
Not even trying to be funny.
I believe
it's
it.
Almost comical because I'm like, you're funny, but
yeah,
best sense of humor ever.
But he knows I trust, so it's an all-knowing thing. So point is, Jamia, like, you'll get there because it's just, you'll know, almost like your husband, like, you'll know where it clicks for you, and
right.
This is why I'm very like, oh, that's on you. Like, you guys, I have clients who, we're lucky because we're on the West, but I have clients who, probably about 6 or 7, who are breaking away from the Southern churches. I'm talking about the churches that y'all probably know. And
like the evangelical.
I feel so sad that was your experience on the human level, because us over here, we're so gifted from the Californian that I was raised. Like, we're gifted to not be shamed by Bible. And then my friend Missy is always like, you just have authoritative issues. That's why you don't believe in the Bible. I'm like, it's not that I don't believe in it. I'm just logistically, let's think about this.
Well, not only that, like, logistically, yes, but also, I don't know, and maybe this is the feminist in me, but I'm like, who says they were telling the truth? What makes them infallible? Yeah. Like, that is my biggest, like, every time I'm like, well, what? Yeah. Like, what if no? What if no? What if that was the angle that he saw that at? Maybe that's not what was really happening. We don't know. Who's going to call you on that?
The best thing is to question.
I love to question. But that's what a lot of, I feel like, spiritual leaders subconsciously don't want you to do, though, unfortunately.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like, when you talk about, like, the shame that people feel or come from when it comes to that, a lot of that, like, big picture stuff, or the first thing people think about is, like, the sexual part of that, like, you going through your or understanding sexuality. It's very much like, don't touch each other until you're married, and then when you're married, there's no guidance after that. You're just like, are we supposed to touch or what? But other than that, there's, like, so much other shame, especially with, like, stuff that, like, I've learned, and when you really go deep in it, it's very much about, like, honor and things like that. But when I think about possibly not going to church every Sunday, there's, like, people who can pull out a couple verses that, like, proves to me why I'm going to hell if I don't. Or it's like, if I do this podcast and I start cussing or something like that, like, then same thing. It's so difficult to break away from shame that's not as visible to other people. And it's just like it's kind of like how you were saying, like, if you know the language, then you know. So, like, the people who are in Christianity, like, deep in it, who are still going to church every Sunday, very much that kind of Christian, there's an understanding in a language that's, like, for other people, they're like, girl, if you don't want to do it, why do you just not do it? But then if I don't, then that language that those people are speaking are very much like, oh, I'm gonna see you at the gates of hell. You're gonna be there with gasoline draws on. And I'm like, it's like rough, because how do you, I guess that kind of goes into the people pleasing part of that too, because when it's tied to something that's so attached to your core, God and religion and Christianity is very much attached to who I am. But also, I understand that He is a God who accepts and loves me. But it's hard because the core of Christianity teaches me that, not that it's conditional, but what's communicated here with people makes it feel like it's conditional, if that makes sense.
People.
So
humans.
It's hard to break from that, like, to break that little chain or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. You'll get there. The beauty is, women have a lot more permission than even our moms did. So you can YOLO all you want. And I'm gonna tell you a story, and then we can break away and off of this. I think we could probably talk about this all day long. But when I broke away from the Catholic Church, there is I don't even know. I'm a terrible Catholic kid. I don't know what Lent, maybe.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. My grandma found out I got baptized and outside the Catholic Church, and she brought, they only eat fish on Fridays. Oh. This woman brought me a huge thing of stew with beef in it on a Friday and said, "This is for you heathens." And I ate it in front of her.
She said,
"She is almighty." That's where I get it from, which we can thank her for what she is. But it was intended to shame me in front of the family.
Yeah.
And I ate it. And she was seething. She was so mad at me.
Man.
And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "How dare you?" I said, "This is why you brought it." And she was
it's good too.
Catholic. And I was like, "Nana, is your Bible on your back?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Let me pull out mine and let's compare." And then she left. So I will never be forgiven for that one. But like generational.
You probably are.
It's not up for her to know.
Yeah. And that's another thing is like a lot of people I know similar have said like they left the church or they don't believe in God because of their experience with the church. And I feel like
so sad.
People so much focus or connect their relationship with God with people because people here are like representation and communicators for God or what he's supposed to say. And like the thing about it is like God has never let me down. There has not been a moment when I have doubted him. I don't understand some stuff. There's stuff that's happened where I was like very questionable, but I'm not going to like say anything about it. But anytime I've been hurt or offended or whatever, it's always been people.
Yeah.
And so like the separation of that is easy for me to make in my mind, but the action behind it is a whole nother thing. But I love that for you, standing up to Nona. Nona said, "I'm bringing stew," and you said, "I'm bringing a spoon." We're going to eat it today.
And I'm bringing a spoon.
If that's not the basis of my entire life, then I don't know what is.
Literally.
I love it. I love it so much. I want to tap in a little bit because I know you have like your flagship group coaching program, which is Becoming Her. And I want to ask you in this, you've answered it somewhat too. My kiddo's yelling. Answered it somewhat too, but I want to know, because something that I speak on, like when I've been doing like speaking things lately, is about grieving the things that you need to grieve in order to become who you need to be for yourself in that season. I'm curious for you, Alyx, what did you have to let go of to become her?
Everything.
Ugh.
I mean, I was just talking about this. My 29th year of life, 28, 29, was probably number 2 hardest time in my life. Hardest was 24. But there was like so many things. I had a plan for the longest time on how I would feel safe, how I would follow the rules, how I would get retirement. Like I had a plan. I had the friends, I had the house, my husband had the career. I had everything, but it abandoned 18-year-old me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's the premise of what selfish contract is, because I had to relearn that all of this wasn't bad. It just didn't work. But then in the same breath, learning not running away from good, which is really hard to navigate because you question everything. I had to release family support. I didn't talk to my family for a good year. I had to work on my relationship solely with my husband. I really figure out my own toxic traits with that. I had to grieve that I chose to adopt 2 girls and I didn't live out the dreams I set out, which was going to New York. I had an apartment and I let it go. And then I had to unlearn expectations. I had to stop living in a space of what I was supposed to do and get really unconventional. And when it's unconventional, it's really lonely.
Yeah.
And I had to be okay not getting people's sign of approval.
100%.
And I'm still living in that.
Nope. Every day, that's literally, I feel like I'm walking out like constantly of this, just like outside of like the traditional, like what people, when you hear the word grief, you automatically think of like death of someone, right? Like somebody in your life that has passed away, and not really ever acknowledging the things that you have to lose even within yourself in order to get or you associate the things you have to lose within yourself as grief as well. And you're still going through that same process that you do when you lose someone, like in the physical, you still are grieving these things about yourself in every single season of your life. I think friendship is, and it's funny that you brought that up at the beginning as well, but I feel like that transition into adulthood and transition into womanhood and starting to have boundaries and things like that starts to reveal relationships in your life that are extremely toxic for you, even as much as you love those people in your life. What advice would you give someone who needs to exit a toxic friendship? Maybe not even like romantic relationship, but a friendship that's like, hey, this is no longer serving me. Is it something that you feel needs to be said? Is it something that you feel needs to have a conversation? Or is it just where actions, where it's just distance, a little bit of distance here? I mean, I know what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me, but what would you recommend for someone that they've acknowledged, all right, in order for me to choose myself and become passionate about me, I know that these relationships no longer serve me. What now?
My toxic trait is I cut people off fast.
I wish that was my toxic trait.
It's so bad. No, it's like I have to be very aware of it because I'm like, oh, it's bad. I mean, listen, I always say, like, if I can cut off my family that fast, don't think that you're any different.
Yeah.
Toxic trait. But I think it's brave to be vulnerable. And I've learned that. And I think it's brave to at least grace and respect the friendship for what it was in communication. So like if somebody is just not it anymore, I don't even think it needs to be long. I mean, I did this to my friendship that I think is on pause or whatever it is. I call and I say, you know, I noticed this. Is there something I also did to hurt you? And you have to be willing to take it and then also agree, like, it's going to look different now. And when you say things like that, it's a boundary, but it's not a hard cut. Now, if someone's extremely toxic and it just needs to be a cut, then cut. Like, but people overly explain themselves when the friendships made them so sick because they almost feel like they need to be validated in the cut. I'm good. Like sometimes you just have to be okay with not being sick anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good.
Yeah.
All the wisdom.
Yeah.
So moving on from that too, and still staying on that topic of becoming her, obviously, like I rave about you and your program. I've got friends that are in your program right now that are just so in love with it. And I thank you for bringing that space. And I think what it really did when you came to Denver is it really opened up, I don't know, let me go back 2 steps. So with the retreat and like things that I host and things like that, like I can often get caught up in this whole like, oh my gosh, like what number should it be? And there's sometimes where I play small and like what the attendance should be. But the same thing when it comes to just like God, I'm like, all right, Lord, like you're going to put the right people in that room. The women that need to hear it are going to hear it. The women that need to be around those certain people or build community, they're going to be in that space. And so I know that you did that and created such a beautiful, safe space for the attendees and the people in our community. And I'm so grateful for that because I definitely see those women evolving. And when I get feedback about like what was their favorite speaker and things like that, like, sorry guys, I mean, all the speakers are great, but you were definitely a crowd favorite. And I know I joke about this, and we talked on live not too long ago about it too, about how I knew how I didn't have the opportunity to be inside of your breakout session at our last retreat. And that, unfortunately, guys, it's not recorded. So too bad, so sad. I suggest you get involved, get plugged into the communities. But Jamia was in that session. And I remember at one moment, I literally get this like text, like 911 text in all caps about bring tissues to this room because everybody is crying. And Jamia, what was your first experience for Alyx? And Alyx, I'm putting you on the spot to receive this. Because I've heard some of it from like, from just like a relational perspective, but I would love for you to hear what that small session did, that breakout session did for you, Jamia.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not sorry.
I think a lot of it was that was one of the first times, like we talk a lot about like women supporting women and things like that. But that was one of the first times I've seen an active example of holding people accountable. And I think that's why it was so emotional in there, because I don't know if people have had that experience before. And especially because it was in front of other people. Like, if you're being held accountable when it's just you guys, or if it's just like you by yourself, that's one thing. But if you're in front of a group of people, like, you really don't have a choice. Like, you got to tell the truth at this point. So I think that was one of the biggest takeaways of the overall experience. Like, I don't remember specific details about every little thing, but that was one of the feelings that I remember, and it being a safe space to do so. Like, Alyx very much was the type of person to be like, okay, if somebody's like, I just don't understand why I can't fix this relationship with my father. Like, yes, I cuss him out every week, but he just has to deal with it. And she's like, cool. So do you realize that cussing him out probably isn't the best option? Love that for you still. But do you realize that you probably should change that? In terms of like, the energy of that was very much a yes and. So yes, your feelings are valid and you got to do better. That was very much the whole ambiance and experience of that, which I thought was really cool, because again, I haven't experienced that before. It's a lot of times people talk about empowerment retreats of just being like a you go girl type of experience, but this was very much, yeah. It was a growth. It was a real growth. Like, you could see people actively being uncomfortable and growing in that uncomfortability, which I thought was really dope. So thanks for that.
I love that. Say it again.
It feels like what I do. Like, I feel there's a huge empowerment in knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us like to lie to ourselves. One of my biggest line will be like, well, let's just not lie to ourselves about it. And people always get kind of taken aback by it, but it's facts. And sometimes we'll tell ourselves, I mean, that might be some of the friend trauma too that your friend's experiencing, is sometimes people will create a narrative that's just easier to digest, but it's not necessarily the reality. So if we're using an example of like, oh yeah, I'm cussing my dad out every day. Like, okay, but what aren't you saying to him? And that's the accountability. Like, so your anger is the umbrella, but what do you wish you could say instead of just yelling? And I think that's like the premise of what I do, is there's a power in knowing. And the minute that you know, you can't be rocked because you know it first.
Yeah. That's the dig deeper part. I remember that part too, of she was like, I'm going to let you guys know. I'm going to tell you to dig deeper. If I feel like you're on the surface, I'm going to tell you to dig deeper. And you can just tell everybody started getting tight. Like, please don't bring it this way.
When people were asking questions, I was like, go deeper. They're like, girl, it's 3:30 on a Tuesday.
She's like, here's the shovel. You're going to keep digging. And it was it was a situation. I don't know if you remember this, Alyx. I had told you, my sister and I came back into the room to grab something. And I was like, have you ever thought about being on TV? I feel like you would be really good at like having a talk show or something like that. Because I think that you just command a room so well and so naturally that it's like, I think, man, people would really say that, like, pay to see that in masses. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, I don't know if you know that, but like, that's the next step.
I appreciate that. I again, it could be the pageant training. But you know what gets easy? I just speak facts, and that's the God-given talent. Like, it's the 9 degrees behind me on top of it all that I think delivers the message. We're in a state of tell me more. Like, we want to know about the friend stuff because I want to know if it's me. And the beauty of it is, you know, Alyx, the community that you created, and I did process that night of the small group, was when people want more, when people crave to know more, the energy is just like crazy. But I have spoken at events, actually the one after yours. So they're not here to receive what Alyx's room was to receive. And that's okay. But for the work that I do, you have to crave like a grit. And it's almost hard for me to do the opposite, because when I went to the event after, beautiful energy, but I'm not soft at all.
At all.
Like, I even wore white to go speak to them, because it was not never black leather pants.
Let me light this up.
It's just that's also a knowing of yourself. Like, even with the work that you both do, it's an ever knowing of your being, and just being and knowing the rooms where you can just be. That probably is more of the power you saw too.
Oh, I love that so much. My next question is not going to probably make a lot of sense until after. What is your ethnicity?
Mexican and white, but the white is kind of cool because it's Russian and Polish.
It's kind of cool.
I think I'm only 25% Hispanic.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I'm curvy.
That's still in there, girl. You still got
so
it.
That body's banging. No, I asked that too because, like, one, I'm not ever afraid to talk about race. Like, that's just not. I'm not afraid to talk about race. But something I want to say to that, because I wonder if, don't mind my baby, she just woke up from a nap. But I wonder if the fact that you're not very white passing, like, there's you look at you and you're like, what is Alyx? I don't know.
You're so bad too.
Well, you were
so bad. It's not.
It's so bad. But, like, I also wonder that too. I wonder if you being in some of those spaces, or maybe the difference between, I don't know what the demographic of the room that you were in, like speaking at the event following you speaking at ours, but what, I just wonder if that has something to do with the level of comfortability and vulnerability in the room.
10,000%. Okay.
And that's on period.
10,000%. Okay, so the majority of my friends are Black. Oh, surprise.
Surprise!
Again, blessed to be raised in California. But more so, I always say we were like the poorest middle class people ever growing up. My parents both had really, really good jobs, but my family did not, like my external family. So my babysitter essentially was my great aunt, and they were like cholos. When I say cholo, I'm talking
Love
about
it.
Envision California cholo. My family, even my husband's family, is like long socks to this day.
Yeah.
So
and eyebrows,
my blessing
all of
was
Cortezes.
yes. So my blessing was they lived in a place called the Ville, which was 90% African American. So, and I went to the elementary school, 90% African American. So as I went to Disneyland every month and like flew to Washington, D.C. and ate off China, blah, 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 with my grandma who worked really hard for her job, my babysitting environment, which was 90% of the time, I was in the hood, in the legit hood. And I felt comfortable there. So I don't really, when Black Lives Matter happened, I somewhat felt unsafe talking about it because I wanted to learn more, but I'm never afraid of asking questions. And I think that's why I'm comfortable in the demographic that Gladiate produced at the time, because I'm used to it. And I just did a talk with my friend Naomi, who was like born and raised in Compton. And we did a whole talk on race, and Dr. Bruce Perry talking about our first experience with a race that's opposite of us is going to stick with us. And I was graced on not having experiences. I was teased, but I was graced with not having bad experiences. And my husband's an officer, and he grew up in the hood, and he is amazing on the street because he knows how to talk the talk. So yes, in the room it helped because I know how to talk.
1000%. That's so interesting. So it's funny that you feel more comfortable. Do you feel more comfortable with people who are not like you as opposed to people who are then?
I'm comfortable with all. I think it's interesting because my friend Naomi, like, she's obviously African American, and she'd be like, "Bitch, you annoyed me at the beginning." And I'm like, I know that, which is why I was pushy, because I knew you would like me anyways. I'm confident in both because I know I'm not ignorant.
Yeah.
And I think that's my gift. I can conform without being a chameleon. Like I can hang.
That's so good.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just Rachel, my friend Rachel, calls me seasoned.
We love a seasoned gal. We love a seasoned gal.
You're welcome. I want to be a Utah mom. I want to be a Utah mom who's seasoned. And it's like not working out, just so everybody knows. And like, my sister, like I think I'm gonna get rid of my highlights. And my sister was like, "Girl, you're like technically kind of Armenian." Like, because I lived in LA for years, and you're basically an Armenian Black girl. I'm like,
yeah. So you're Kim's cousin, basically.
You're like, basically, that's exactly how I identify.
That's why you guys hear the Valley twang.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm here for it.
I know it's terrible.
It's not. It's perfect, and it makes you. And I'm so grateful to know you. I know. Gosh, this is a lengthy episode. We might have to split this one into two. I know. I'm loving it though, but for the sake of everyone's time, and so if you're listening to this in your car or wherever, you can get out now. So sorry that we are so long, but I know I always say this every time you encounter our community and anyone that listens to us. But this is not the last time you'll ever hear from Alyx Allen. She's kind of stuck with us. So, like, I'll find you. Like don't play. Like, I'll find you. Yeah. But thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and just always being a champion for women to love themselves and to know themselves. I think that's amazing about what you do. So thank you for creating the space and sharing space with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Alyx.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm never far.
I was like, why are you?
I'm never far.
Awesome.
It's weird. Sorry. We're never far. I know we're ending there, but it was funny. You're like, thanks, Alyx. I'm like, why is Jamia thanking me? But it's because we have the same name. Sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.